Hey there and welcome. In this lesson, we're going to do a quick overview of our HTML setup, our starting point, and then we're going to prepare to add in the JavaScript and as well set up our YouTube API key, which we're going to need in order to connect to the YouTube search API. So I've got some basic styling. I've got an index page. I've got a style. I've got only one class. So this is box. And it's got a width, display. So these are some basic styling properties, and of course you probably want to adjust these as this is just simply creating us an element or a class that we can use in order to add two elements as we're creating them and adding them to our page. We've got an input for input content for the search, as well as a button that says search, and then we can also have another element here. So this is a div, and I'm just going to give it a class of output so we can select it and identify it using JavaScript. And then linking to apps.js. So currently right now, apps.js will just clear out this content that's here, and apps.js is just going to be a blank starting point when we're going to be using all of the JavaScript in order to make connections. And I am using brackets. So brackets is a free open source editor. And the one thing I like about brackets is that I can get an HTTP protocol connection within the browser. So that means that I'm not going to file, but I'm going to HTTP and I get an IP address, which gives me more flexibility, especially when I'm trying to connect to APIs. Sometimes you're going to come across errors or different CORS errors or issues. So that is one thing to watch out for when you are trying out and connecting to APIs, is to make sure that you're always running on the HTTP protocol. So this is the same thing as websites use when they go to see web pages. It's using that same protocol, so there's nothing in front of it. And this is different than the file protocol, which if you open up the file within the viewer, so if I was to just open up the index file and open in the viewer, you're going to see that this is a different protocol that's being used, that we see the word file there. And this means that it's using the file protocol and it's not using the web protocol that we use to get web pages. So make sure that you do have an editor or that you're able to run a local machine on your computer before proceeding to the next lessons. And one of the easiest ways is just go ahead and download Brackets, available at brackets.io. So this is again that editor that I'm using within the upcoming lessons. So brackets.io. It's available at brackets.io, and this is the editor that I'm using in the upcoming lessons. So the other thing that you're also going to need is you're going to need to get a YouTube account or a Google account and log into it. And this is going to give you access to get an API key. And the API key is what we're going to use in order to authorize our application to make the connection to the YouTube API. And there's some instructions in here that we're going to run through in the upcoming lesson. And again, here they do tell you that you do need to have, or you should have, an HTTP protocol localhost, or the way that we're doing it with the IP address, it's the same thing. And this is going to give us the ability to authorize the JavaScript origins, and it's going to make our application a little bit more flexible as well. So it's always a good idea. So once you're set up, I'll walk you through how to get your YouTube API key coming up. Using Brackets, which is the editor that I'm using, and within Brackets there's an option called Live Preview, which lets you preview out the content in an HTTP protocol. So this is important. A lot of times when you are making API connections, it might not work directly with the file protocol. So the difference really is that when you use the file protocol, and if you go to the web page, so for instance this is the same HTML page that we're just looking at, and if I click that, you can see that it opens up, but right in the beginning there within the browser URL, it's going to tell us that this is using file protocol. And sometimes within the APIs, when you are making connections, you're going to get blocked with CORS, or you can experience other different errors when you are using this type of protocol. So within Brackets, it does have live preview, and that's enabled. So you can open it in a number of different ways. You can use the shortcut, or for instance, you can use the little lightning bolt, and that's going to open up a page giving us an IP address, and this is a local address, so same thing as localhost, and then we've got the port and then the file. So presenting it within this format is going to make it a lot more flexible when it comes to connecting to APIs. Also, I am using Chrome as the browser of choice. Chrome comes with developer tools. A lot of browsers now come with developer tools, and that gives us access to the JavaScript information within the console, that we can get information as we make the API connections. We can ensure that we've got the object properly. We can loop through and check out the object within the console before hard coding it and adding it into our web page. So that's a definite advantage, and it's going to become really useful and helpful when we are developing these APIs. The other thing that we are going to set up, and this is coming up in the next lesson, we're going to do a quick start with setting up the YouTube Data API. And that means that you are going to need to have a YouTube or a Google account in order to connect and get your authorization key in order to connect. So we do need to authorize the app before we can pull data from the YouTube API. So we're going to have to create an API key and then authenticate it and then pull in the information to our application. We could also set the different authorized JavaScript origins, and there's that localhost again. So it is important to set this up and be ready in order to move on to the next lesson. So once you've got it all set up, and you can set up some basic HTML as well, make sure that you have an input area as well as a search button and an output area. So those are the three pieces that you are going to need moving into the next section so that we can connect those with JavaScript and output them on the page. In the next lesson, we're going to walk you through how to get your YouTube API key, and then we're going to be ready to start JavaScripting. So that's coming up.